Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of iZombie. A very, very good episode. Where obviously, we're picking up with the whole Weckler case situation. Obviously, so Liv has to eat his brain, because Peyton's asking, which turns into a little awkward moment where it's like, hey, it's like, okay, I need you to trigger, visions and stuff like that. And it's like, Peyton kind of got a little too into it. She's like, oh yeah, you zombie slut, lick my boots clean. It's like, wow, you're a little too into this, Peyton. Because I love her rationale for it too. It's like, yeah, I want justice and everything, but more so than anything, it's like, oh, shouldn't you be relieved that something like, that you were right, that the killer was, you got the right kill in the first place. It's like, no, more so than anything, I want to be right. I'm glad to see where your priorities are, Peyton. But getting back to it, that was so interesting how weird and awkward that was. It's like, I knew it was a little part of the episode, but it didn't go on for a long time, but it went on a little longer than I thought it was. It's just like, very, very interesting. That's all I'm going to say on that subject. But obviously, as I kind of elaborated on last week's episode, she did in fact see, Drake, sadly not Lowell, but more so Drake, because it was a situation where it's like, because it turns out because Weckler felt guilt about his wife dying, and that's why, Liv is seeing specifically Drake, because, she has a problem with the fact that she blames herself for him dying and everything. It's like, she didn't have a choice in the matter because there wasn't anything of Drake left. It was once you go, in her words, full Romero, there's no going back. But I do appreciate throughout the episode, he's popping up, even during the whole, Peyton and Liv situation. He's like, oh, wow. Oh, that's hot. And then constantly popping up, and then she has to explain it. It's like, no, this isn't as weird as you think it is. It's me a zombie talking to my dead boyfriend, which even Peyton comes like, oh, yeah. Oh, what? Do I think this is weird? My zombie roommate talking to her ghost ex-boyfriend? I mean, her dead boyfriend. So it's like, which is kind of interesting because if you know anything about the comic books, the main protagonist, her name isn't Liv, she actually has one of her best friends, or at least one of the characters she's familiar with in the comic books is a ghost. So I guess to a certain extent you kind of got that there. So I thought that was just kind of interesting. Obviously it was all, like I said, this show's, I've brought it up before, this show's never going to really go down a supernatural route. It's always going to stay science fictional. Not unless science fiction kind of it can cross into those realms, but I'm sure it's just going to stay mainly a zombie show. Obviously, the little bit I know about the comic book is that there are other things in there, but nevertheless, that's not the point. I just kind of a little nod in that direction that I thought was kind of interesting. I mean, that's just most likely just me overthinking it. Once again, this isn't the first time she'd seen something before. So I think I referenced it in last episode when she had that whole episode where I think, like I said, I think it was Scotty, Donnie's brother, his brain. I think that's what it was. But nevertheless, obviously, diving deeper into the Weckler situation, we do find out he did, in fact, kill the dominatrix, Roxanne. But then later on, we find out, oh, he didn't hang himself. He was hung. There was a guard who killed him. This guard, in fact, went on a cruise. His name is Gary, and he ended up disappearing. Interesting enough, I don't remember. I think I have a vague memory of the case, but basically the person they got the information from was a dude who was like, no, I'm not going to do anything to help this lady, talking about Liv. Like, oh man, her eyes went all red and she did martial arts. She's a freaking mutant. And his lawyer's like, a mutant? He's like, lady, can you please just stop repeating every word back to me? I think I'm slightly familiar with the case. I don't remember the exact details. I'm pretty sure that was to my memory, I'm pretty sure that was season 1, whatever the case was. So at least I think so. But things get even more interesting because they end up talking to, well, like I said, that guard, Gary, disappeared while he was on a cruise, suspiciously. And it's like, yeah, Clive and them are like, yeah, okay, obviously this is definitely weird because it seems like someone's cleaning the house. And then it takes an even more interesting turn when they go visit his daughter, and the daughter's like, oh yeah, I'm talking about my dad's voice. How do you know my dad was killed? It's like, oh yeah, it was a guard who did it. We got it, and witnesses said it was one of the guards that did it. And then, because her roommate is constantly peeking in on the whole situation. It's like, okay, she's seeing a hush-hush about it. Is your roommate, whoever it is you're staying with is in on this or something? And then the moment they walked away, they're like, huh, so the police department so zombies are working for the police department. Now I'm like, wait, what? And they pull out tubes. I'm like, whoa. So for one, they're zombies. Weckler's daughter was a zombie. So it's like, how long has she been a zombie? The fact is also, at first I was thinking for a second, I was like, oh, so are these zombies that have pre-existed? It's like, no, they couldn't be. And then I was like, no, you're being stupid. They have tubes. That means they're connected to Fillmore Graves. Maybe they're zombies that grew up in the system or whatever, or maybe or at least they're in some shape or form, they're connected to Fillmore Graves, which then immediately puts it in my head. So maybe it's not necessary. Maybe I was on the right path with Baracus and everything. Like, obviously, there's like some higher up conspiracy behind it. But now I'm thinking about it even more. It's like with this new development, it's like maybe this has to deal with Fillmore Graves. I mean, maybe because we know like they have a lot of powerful people connected to them. There's a lot of powerful people that are zombies that are part of Fillmore Graves, ergo Baracus. So what if it was actually, because we know Weckler did kill Roxanne, but it's just because she walked in on him trying to steal the memory card. That's why. So it's like, what got caught on the memory card? Did Baracus, because we know he was one of her clients, did he go all zombie? And, to cover this up, Fillmore Graves hired someone. They outsourced it. Which begs the question. No. I doubt it. I think Baracus outsourced it himself because he didn't want to, he thought he could handle himself, but it turned into a whole investigation. So Fillmore Graves got involved in everything. This must have some. I mean, which is interesting because it seems like if that's the case, all the storylines are connecting. Obviously, worrying about the zombies being kind of brought out, kind of being revealed and everything, and then also like dealing that being the same option. I mean, nevertheless, it's like the way Baracus told Peyton last episode, drop it, accept the win. It's like, yeah, he's definitely involved, but now it's like maybe Fillmore Graves is involved. Because I think I brought it up last episode, but my original thought, like I brought it up previously before that, was like I thought it was like Mr. Boss was connected or something, like. But it seems like that might be the direction because because the only people they really went out of their way to mention were her client, were like the weather guy who's now an anchor and Baracus. Him being mayor and everything that would jeopardize his future position. So I think that might be more so than anything. I mean. It's connected to the fact that he couldn't, like, and it's something Liv brought up this episode, like the next mayor could be a zombie and everything. So, so Fillmore Graves might have something to do with this. At least that's where my mindset at least with that reveal. So I wonder what does this mean going forward? Because it's like, it seems like the girls know something and we're like, you would think she'd be more for it. But the fact is she acted like she didn't want to say anything too. But now that she realizes Liv is a zombie, is she going to be more open to talking about it, or is she going to be even more reserved? Is she going to go back to Fillmore Graves and be like, yo, this zombie's still looking into it? Oh, who's looking into it? Liv is looking into it. I mean, especially the whole like change of like hierarchy now that like Chase has stepped in because Vivian's, out of the picture, quote unquote. Like I still don't believe that. I still think she's. I mean, maybe she isn't, but it's like it's hard to say. Like like I said, because it seems like I can't help but feel like this is all some big grab for power when it comes to Fillmore Graves. I mean, because they're putting a lot of faith in Baracus too. It was like he's supposed to be kind of their go-to guy. At least that's what Vivian and them kind of set him up to be. And now Chase is kind of like, okay, let me. Maybe this has nothing to do with the Chase. Maybe this has a lot to do with Vivian and stuff. We will just have to wait and see. But just that got me. I was like, dude, because it didn't even register on my brain that it might be Fillmore Graves. I mean, let's not forget, there's still another storyline we still haven't tapped into. It's like the cure and everything. Originally, I said it was Fillmore Graves, and I started thinking maybe it's Caddy because we still have not seen her for a while. The last time we saw her is when Peyton came into like her and Robbie's whole situation. So that's the last time we saw her, but I doubt it's the end of it. So, but just overall, just that's still a part of the episode. But another interesting aspect of the episode is Shauna, and we see her and Major kind of getting closer and everything, which is interesting. Did not think it would like take a turn like that, but I guess it's like she understands better. I mean, we still don't even know what Shauna's whole situation is like. Like we didn't even dive into it in this episode. Hopefully we kind of dive into it next episode, but at the very least, it's like she got accused of something too, so that's why her and Major. But it's like, I'm still reluctant. It's like, you always got to be careful when new people kind of come into the new circle and everything. So it's like, I don't know, like, oh yeah, like here's me spreading this video about you. I'll put it on Tumblr, all cute and adorable and everything. But it's like, I don't know, man. Like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop in that particular situation. Definitely got super awkward when Liv came over and she's like, oh Okay. Oh, your fort of lust. Okay. Which is kind of interesting considering the fact is obviously she's trying to get things on with Justin and everything, but then it's like she's kind of bothered by it. She's like, no, I'm trying to do my thing with Justin, so I really shouldn't say anything about their whole fort lust or whatever. It's just, I guess, because let's not forget her and Major had their whole thing when they thought thought he was dying, or at the very least he was dying and was going to lose his memory, so they gave him the cure that was going to erase his memory. So obviously that there, but it's also, I think it's always a situation of like, no matter what your situation is, when you see that ex kind of, off with someone else, it still kind of tugs at your heart. Because let's not forget, after everything they've been through, and even before all that, they were engaged. So it's still a little hard. But I guess maybe Weckler's brain and the whole situation with Drake in her head also kind of, aggravated that whole, like, opened that wound a little bit. But, which Liv did, in this episode, she did kind of deal with the whole situation with Drake. The fact is that she was like, she finally kind of, basically, obviously, it's, the whole Drake thing is a subconscious thing. Her subconscious blame, where she's always blamed herself for Drake's death. And she apologizes because she's like, I've basically, it's something Liv's kind of done in the past. It's basically she jumps from one brain to another to kind of deal with her situations, and she kind of did the same thing for Drake. I'm literally about to call him Joel. I'm pretty sure she actually did the same thing when it came to Lowell too. She like jumped from one brain to the next just so she wouldn't have to feel what she felt. It's kind of like her escapism, and it's kind of an interesting storyline that kind of giving major props to SourceFed Nerd. It's something they have brought up. The fact is that Liv is a sponge. You never really get to know Liv. You know her a little bit in between cases and stuff like that, but Liv is always a sponge, obviously adapting the personality of someone else, and that's just kind of become like her thing now. And I think even though she's reluctant to obviously absorb certain brains, but the fact of the matter is, like, there's a viable option now. There's an option of test like the test tubes and everything for Fillmore Grace, but I don't think Liv would ever take those because I think on some way, like, it's her way of dealing with things, and maybe eventually she'll kind of have to confront that. But it's like when you actually break it down, like, I guess if you want to break it down psychologically, it's her vice. Her vice is eating brains and becoming someone else so she doesn't have to be herself and live with certain things. Obviously, it only comes up majorly when there's big things like obviously Lowell and then Drake. Which obviously her and Justin take steps. Obviously the first time it kind of got ruined because of the whole like Drake situation, which she said goodbye to Drake, which led to another awkward situation where Peyton and Justin walked in on her making out with nothing. So that was interesting. Once again, I hope things work out with Drake. With Justin. Once again, still like I always Major and Liv, but nevertheless, it's like I hope things work out because the thing is, Major is the only SO that is still standing because, like, once again, Lowell, Drake, so that's a very nasty pattern which she's kind of brought up before. So hopefully it doesn't take that type of turn with Justin, but we'll see. Then we got some interesting turn of events when it came to Blaine. I didn't see this coming. Blaine kind of reveals to Mr. Boss who he is. It's like I shot you. You should be dead. It's like, and I slit your throat before. It's like, oh yeah, but I am. Come on, you can figure out. He's like, I'm standing here, I'm eating a brain. You're a cannibal? Yes. But that's not quite what I'm looking for. Like, okay, I'm standing here before you, and I am what was he? He was like, a serial killer? He's like, once again, yes, but I was like, I'm here, I'm a zombie. Get used to it. But it's kind of interesting. Like, previously, last week's episode, I was like, okay, what's going to happen is maybe he'll follow Blaine to, his dad, and then it turns out a situation where they join forces or something like that. But no, it turns out that Blaine's trying to get Mr. Boss to join him. I was like, I got almost in the right direction. I just went to the wrong member of the Blaine family. I don't actually know their last names, but instead of going to Blaine's dad, it's like a common. It's kind of interesting because you would think like he was kind of like one of Mr. Boss's low-level lackeys for a long time. You would think you'd want him dead, but it's like no. Mainly because like he can't run the business like his dad does. I guess because his dad just has better connections than him. Once again, Blaine has always been low-level. His dad's kind of top tier. I'm sure he really hate that, but it's kind of true. But he's like, he needs help with Mr. Boss because Mr. Boss has international connections. Mr. Boss has his reservations. Try to stab Blaine, and Blaine's like, okay, you idiot. This is how it's going to be. So I need your help to basically make this business grow. Like, hey, you can get a kickback off it. We're going to make like a crap ton of money off this whole situation. It's like, okay, I'm into it. Was not expecting that. Granted, you can't trust someone like Mr. Boss, especially because Mr. Boss is always used to being, well, Mr. Boss. So eventually he'll act all docile for a while, but he's always going to be planning your demise. There's still a possibility for that join up between him and Blaine's dad. It's like, oh, he once again still follows Blaine to it, because Mr. Boss is always going to be looking for an opportunity to strike at Blaine, and it's like this will present the ultimate opportunity for him, so it'd be the perfect chance to kind of strike at him. It's like, oh, find out your weakness. Oh, your dad? Let's join forces. I'll sit close to Blaine. You attack from the shadows. He thinks he's got the upper hand. We'll show him type of thing. So unlikely allies there. So really was not expecting it at all. So I really appreciate that turn of events. I was also kind of halfway expecting him to turn Mr. Boss too. Who knows? Actually at the end of this, Mr. Boss won't be him. For all we know, at the end of this, he might be dead. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. And a very interesting thing is when you actually break it down, it's kind of interesting. Like Mr. Boss just came at the wrong time, because let's not forget, like, if it wasn't for Blaine's dad already beating him to the punch of wanting Blaine dead, Blaine wouldn't have been in a position to turn back into a zombie. He wouldn't have felt the need to be a zombie again. The reason why he went back to being a zombie is because he got shot and hurt, and it's just like that pushed him to want to become a zombie, which in fact saves his life now that Mr. Boss came to try and kill him. Also presented him a new business opportunity as well. It's a whole situation. It's very, I have to use the word again, serendipitous. That's literally because I think that's easily become my favorite podcast word now, much like the phrase, duty ends justify the means. So I just thought that was kind of fascinating when you actually break it down like that. If he'd only gotten to Blaine a few days earlier, he could have gotten his revenge and bounced. So, but obviously another big part of this episode was the whole Donnie situation. It's like I appreciate the fact that Donnie's still stuck in like that blue brain he ate and everything, and then he's just kind of like singing the national anthem, and one of Harley's boys takes off his hat and puts it on his chest, like, and you have Robbie looking at him like, really? So basically, got this whole camera situation set up. They're trying to live stream it. It's like once 100,000 people are viewing, then they're going to be like, oh, get him all revved up, kind of make him go feral essentially, and kind of show him as a zombie and everything. Robbie's trying to buy time and everything. He's talking to Donnie and everything, and he's like, okay, you have an extra phone on you, right? He's like, yeah, it's taped to my butt cheek, between my butt cheeks. He's like, oh, gross. And he reaches for it, and Donnie tries to eat him. He's like, really? He's like, I'm sorry. And so he tries to call. He's like, okay, I'm gonna call Liv, and then he couldn't remember her number. Which, like, I just always thought, I love it just because, like, you have Donnie being like, oh, modern problems. Like, you're so used to like seeing someone's contact name, naming your contacts, or just like speed dialing them, that you don't even think about learning someone's phone number anymore. Just modern problems. Which technically, this was all kind of like, technically Major's fault in the first place. I guess Robbie wanted Major to kind of bring up, like, because obviously he came up with this whole lie about his parents and everything, that I guess Major was supposed to realize something was there. More so than anything, he was saying that in front of Harley and everything, but I guess it's like, I guess he couldn't really bring up a much clearer lie. Maybe he was hoping that like Major would realize. To me, it seemed like it was him sending a code. Initially I was like, oh, you're just out of town. It's like, oh no, you were sending a code. Maybe not. Maybe that was just kind of an excuse. Which, side note, we've never actually met Robbie's parents. I wonder, is that going to be something will kind of come up soon or not? Does he even have any siblings, or is he the only child? I don't remember if that's ever come up before. At the very end, like, they're getting ready to do their thing. Now they've reached 100,000. And Robbie's standing in the way, and they're like, dude, like, Rachel's there. She's like, Robbie, don't do, like, it seems like Rachel is kind of on the more positive side. Like, let's not do this. This is a zombie. Like, he might be a zombie, but should we really be doing this? Because she's even asking, like, if they go all the way, is there any way to come back and everything? And Robbie's kind of like, no. So it's kind of cool to see that she's on his side once again. At least I'm a little more not as reserved when it comes to Rachel. I'm still a little hesitant, but she seems like she's got her good head on her shoulders. While at the same time, we have Blaine and Liv joining forces to kind of break up this whole situation. We see them kind of zombieing up, like, at the end. So, gun press to Robbie's head. It's definitely going to be a very interesting episode next week. I'm so excited to find out what happens. Like, this was such a good episode, some amazing developments. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.